Admiral Kethvar stood tall in the center of the great war room. His blue crystalline skin caught the light from the massive holographic display that showed the galaxy before him. Hundreds of star systems glowed in different colors. Green meant conquered, red meant resistant, yellow meant under attack. There were very few red dots left on the map. The Zephyrian hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships were fast and deadly. Their weapons could slice through any armor. Their shields could stop any attack. At least that's what they believed. "Show me the Sol system," Kethvar commanded. His voice echoed through the chamber where 12 different alien species sat around a curved table. Each one represented a world that had fallen to Zephyrian might. The hologram changed. A yellow star appeared with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star glowed with a soft blue light. Water covered most of its surface. "Earth," said Commander Vexta, Kethavar's second in command. "Home to the species that calls itself humans. They have been sending radio signals into space for only 200 of their years. Very primitive." The other council members leaned forward to study the data. The Mantari delegate, a tall insect-like creature, clicked his mandibles. "What is their technology level?" "Laughable," Vexta replied. "They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Their fastest ships barely reach 1% of light speed. They fight wars with metal projectiles fired from tubes." Several council members made sounds that passed for laughter in their species. The Korth representative, a blob-like being, gurgled with amusement. "Metal projectiles? Do they throw rocks at each other as well?" Kethavar studied the tactical data flowing across his personal display. Human military vessels looked like crude metal boxes with primitive engines attached. Their largest weapons were nuclear bombs that released energy through uncontrolled fusion reactions. Compared to Zephyrian plasma lances that could cut through a moon, these weapons seemed like toys. "How many ships do they have in space?" asked the Villani delegate, her 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Approximately 300 vessels," Vexta answered. "Most are cargo haulers or scientific research ships. They appear to have less than 50 military vessels, and those are scattered throughout their system." Kethavar nodded. Every species they had conquered followed the same pattern. When faced with superior technology, they either surrendered immediately or fought a brief, hopeless battle before giving up. The humans would be no different. "Their largest vessel appears to be some kind of battleship," Vexta continued. 3 kilometers long, but the design is very strange. Thick armor, multiple weapon systems, and an oversized engine. Our analysts believe it's compensation for their inferior technology." The war room filled with more alien laughter. The idea that a single ship could threaten a Zephyrian fleet was absurd. Their smallest cruiser could destroy a dozen primitive human vessels. "What is their population?" Kethvar asked. 8 billion individuals on the home planet, with perhaps another billion scattered across their system on various colonies and stations. These numbers impressed the council slightly. Most species they encountered had populations in the millions, but numbers meant nothing without proper technology and training. Kethvar accessed the psychological profiles that Zephyrian scouts had compiled. Humans appeared to be pack hunters who had evolved on a planet with dangerous predators. They were aggressive by nature, but also seemed capable of cooperation. They had fought numerous wars among themselves, but these conflicts used primitive weapons and tactics. "Admiral," said the Corvan delegate, "why not simply send a single cruiser? Surely that would be enough to force their surrender." Kethvar considered this. Standard Zephyrian doctrine called for overwhelming force to minimize casualties on both sides. A show of power usually ended conflicts before they began. But the council was right. Humans seemed so primitive that a single ship might indeed be sufficient. "No," he decided. "We will follow proper procedure. I want 200 ships for the initial assault. If they surrender quickly, we can avoid unnecessary destruction." The truth was that Kethvar enjoyed these conquests. Each new species added to the hegemony's power. Humans would provide laborers. Their planet would supply resources. And their technology might offer some minor innovations once properly guided by Zephyrian science. "What resistance should we expect?" asked Commander Vexta. Kethvar pulled up combat footage from humanity's recent wars. The images showed soldiers hiding in trenches, tanks rolling across battlefields, and aircraft dropping bombs. Everything moved so slowly compared to space combat. The humans' idea of tactics seemed to involve large groups of individuals shooting at each other across open ground. Minimal resistance, he concluded. Their military doctrine appears to focus on surface warfare between large groups. They have no experience with proper space combat. Their ships move too slowly to avoid our weapons, and their armor is too thin to withstand plasma lances. The Zephyrian weapons could fire at near light speed. Human ships would be destroyed before they could even detect the incoming attack. Their return fire, if any, would take minutes to cross the distances involved in space combat. "When do we depart?" asked Vexta, immediately. "I want this conquest completed quickly so we can move on to more challenging targets." Kethvar dismissed the council and made his way to the flagship, the Eternal Victory. The massive vessel stretched 5 kilometers from bow to stern, its crystalline hull gleaming like a cut diamond. Quantum shields surrounded the ship in an invisible barrier that could deflect any known weapon. The main plasma lance could slice through a planet's crust. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to jump to the Sol system, intelligence officers continued to monitor human communications. Radio signals painted a picture of a species that seemed completely unaware of the approaching threat. They continued their daily routines, broadcast entertainment programs, and conducted routine military exercises with their primitive weapons. Some intelligence suggested that humans had detected Zephyrian scout ships over the past 50 years, but their technology couldn't have learned much from such distant observations. Even if they had spotted the scouts, what could they do? Build bigger metal ships? Develop slightly more powerful chemical explosives? The fleet's navigators calculated the jump coordinates. 200 ships would emerge at the edge of the Sol system and advance toward Earth in standard formation. The humans would have perhaps 6 hours to consider surrender before the first plasma lances fired. Kethvar settled into his command chair as the ship's engines powered up. Around him, the bridge crew performed final checks on weapons and shields. Everything proceeded according to plan. "Admiral," reported the communications officer, "all ships report ready for jump." "Excellent. Begin the jump sequence." The space around the Zephyrian fleet twisted and folded. Stars stretched into lines as the ships entered hyperspace. In a few moments, they would arrive in the Sol system to claim humanity's surrender. Kethvar allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. After this easy conquest, the hegemony would control another system and another species. The humans would learn to serve their new masters just like all the others. He had no way of knowing that humanity had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Deep in the outer reaches of the Sol system, weapons and ships waited in the cold darkness. The humans had indeed detected those scout ships, and they had learned far more than any Zephyrian could imagine. The war was about to begin, but only one side knew it. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution and watched the alien fleet appear on her screens. 200 ships materialized at the edge of the solar system in perfect formation. Each one looked like a floating crystal, beautiful and deadly. "Contact," announced Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. 200 vessels, unknown configuration. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Sarah had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. The mysterious scout ships that had been detected in the outer system since 2157 had finally sent their main force. Humanity had used those 2 decades well. "Let's hear what they have to say," Sarah ordered. The main screen filled with the image of an alien creature. Its blue crystalline skin caught the light as it spoke in perfect English. "Primitive inhabitants of Sol 3, the alien said. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your world is now under our protection. Surrender your military forces and prepare to join the galactic community as a client species. You have 6 of your hours to comply." The bridge crew remained silent, but Sarah could feel their tension. Every person aboard the Retribution had trained for this moment. Every system on the ship had been designed for this single purpose. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Retribution," she replied. "You are in violation of human space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course or we will consider you hostile." The alien's expression changed. What might have been surprise flickered across its face before settling into something resembling amusement. "Captain Chen," Admiral Kethvar said, "I have 200 warships. You have one. I suggest you reconsider your position." Sarah looked at her tactical display. The alien fleet was advancing in a standard formation that humanity's war colleges had studied for decades. They moved with the confidence of a species that had never lost a major battle. 30 seconds, Sarah repeated, then cut the transmission. The aliens continued their advance. Through the communication channels, Sarah could hear their casual chatter as they discussed how to divide up Earth's resources after the humans surrendered. They spoke about humanity like farmers discussing livestock. 20 seconds, called Lieutenant Park. Sarah accessed her personal files and pulled up images of Earth. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling through the atmosphere. 8 billion people living their lives completely unaware that alien warships were closing in on their world. 10 seconds. The alien fleet continued forward, their crystalline ships gleaming in the sunlight. They hadn't even raised shields or charged weapons. They expected humanity to collapse at the first show of force. Time, Park announced. All stations, this is the captain, Sarah said over the ship's communication system. We are now at war. Show them what humans can do. The Retribution had been built in the shipyards of Ceres over the past 15 years. 3 kilometers of angular black metal, designed by minds that understood exactly what was coming. No curves or elegant lines like the alien ships. Every surface was either armor or weapons. Engine room. Give me everything, Sarah ordered. Fusion torch ignition in 3, 2, 1, came the reply. The massive ship accelerated forward at 12 gravities. Inside, the crew was protected by acceleration couches and gravity compensators that had taken decades to perfect. The aliens' ships could move faster, but they couldn't change direction like the Retribution. Target the lead ship, Sarah commanded. Fire kinetic kill vehicles full spread. The weapons officer pressed the firing key. 20 tungsten rods, each weighing several tons, launched from the Retribution's magnetic rail system. They accelerated to 30% of light speed within seconds. The alien admiral watched his sensors with growing confusion. The human ship was moving far faster than their intelligence had suggested possible. Its acceleration should have killed any crew aboard, yet it continued to gain speed. Then his sensor officer reported something impossible. Admiral, I'm detecting incoming projectiles. Speed is? This can't be right. 30% light speed. Impossible, Kethavar replied. No kinetic weapon can reach those velocities. Check your instruments. The sensor officer's mandibles clicked nervously. Sir, the readings are confirmed. Impact in 14 seconds. Kethavar felt his first moment of doubt. Raise shields. All ships, defensive formation. The quantum shields around the lead Zephyrian cruiser flickered to life, just as the first kinetic kill vehicle struck. The tungsten rod, moving at nearly 100,000 kilometers per second, hit the shield with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The shield held for exactly 1 microsecond. The rod punched through the barrier like it wasn't there and slammed into the ship's crystalline hull. The kinetic energy converted instantly to heat and light. The cruiser didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, transformed into an expanding cloud of plasma. On the Retribution's bridge, cheers erupted from the crew. Their first shot had destroyed an enemy vessel that outmassed them by a factor of 3. Reload kinetic systems, Sarah ordered. Target their flagship. Admiral Kethavar stared at the empty space where his lead ship had been. In 3,000 years of warfare, no Zephyrian vessel had been destroyed so quickly or so completely. Return fire, he commanded. All ships target that vessel. Plasma lances erupted from the alien fleet. Beams of contained stellar fire reached across space toward the Retribution. But the human ship was no longer where the targeting computers expected it to be. Sarah had studied alien combat doctrine extensively. They fought like civilized beings, with predictable patterns and honorable tactics. Humans had learned warfare from a different school. Evasive maneuvers, she commanded. Pattern Delta 7. The Retribution twisted and rolled through space, its course changing randomly every few seconds. The alien plasma beams sliced through empty vacuum where the ship had been moments before. Sir, reported the Zephyrian sensor officer, the human vessel is using unpredictable movement patterns. Our targeting systems cannot acquire a lock. This was another impossibility. Ships that size couldn't change direction so rapidly without tearing themselves apart. Yet the human vessel danced through space like a fighter craft. Continue firing, Kethavar ordered. Volume of fire will compensate for accuracy. But the Retribution had already launched its second volley. More kinetic kill vehicles streaked across space, each one aimed at a different target. The alien ships, locked into their formation, couldn't evade fast enough. 3 more Zephyrian vessels died in explosions of superheated plasma, then 5 more. The human weapons struck without warning, moving too fast for effective countermeasures. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we've lost 9 ships. The human vessel appears to be using some kind of relativistic kinetic weapon. Kethvar's mind raced. Relativistic weapons were theoretical. The energy requirements should be impossible for such a primitive species. Yet the evidence was spreading across space in glowing clouds of vaporized metal. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel, he commanded. Use predictive targeting. Anticipate their movement patterns. The alien fleet adjusted its tactics, firing at the spaces where the retribution might move rather than where it was. Several plasma beams came close enough to heat the ship's armor. But Sarah had one more surprise for the aliens' launch. Nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers, she ordered. Launching, confirmed the weapons. Officer missiles erupted from the Retribution's launch tubes. But these weren't ordinary missiles. They were nuclear bombs designed to channel their energy into focused laser beams at the moment of detonation. The missiles scattered across space, positioning themselves around the alien fleet. When they exploded, each bomb converted its entire yield into a focused beam of X-ray energy. The beams struck the alien ships from multiple angles simultaneously. Quantum shields, designed to stop particle beams and plasma weapons, offered no protection against the intense X-ray bursts. The radiation punched through alien hulls and fried their internal systems. 12 more Zephyrian ships went dark, their crews dead and their systems burned out. The survivors found themselves facing an enemy that fought unlike anything in their experience. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." Captain Chen's face appeared on the screen again. Behind her, the bridge of the Retribution hummed with calm efficiency. "Admiral Kethvar," she said, "you now have 30 seconds to withdraw from human space. This is your only warning." Kethvar looked at his tactical display. 21 ships destroyed in less than 10 minutes. The human vessel showed no damage and appeared to have plenty of ammunition remaining. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 21 ships lost and the human vessel showed no signs of damage. This wasn't how war was supposed to work. "Sir?" his tactical officer said quietly. "Should we withdraw?" Kethvar's crystalline skin darkened with anger. The Zephyrian hegemony had never retreated from a single primitive ship. His reputation, his career, everything depended on conquering these humans. "No," he said firmly. "Spread the fleet into a dispersed formation. Make it harder for them to target multiple ships with each attack." The remaining Zephyrian vessels began to scatter across space. Instead of the tight formation they preferred, the ships spread out over thousands of kilometers. It was harder to coordinate, but it should limit the damage from those devastating kinetic weapons. Captain Chen watched the alien response with interest. They were learning, adapting their tactics. But humans had been studying alien combat doctrine for 50 years. Every possible response had been planned for. "They're dispersing," reported Lieutenant Park. "Standard response to concentrated firepower." "Good," Sarah said. "That makes the next phase easier. Begin broadcasting Package 7. "Broadcasting now, Captain." Across all communication frequencies, the Retribution began transmitting a data package that human intelligence had carefully prepared. It contained footage from humanity's military history, starting with the ancient world and moving forward through time. On the Zephyrian flagship, the communications officer looked confused. "Admiral, the humans are sending us some kind of historical records." "Historical records?" Kethvar asked. "During a battle?" The data package began playing on screens throughout the alien fleet. Zephyrian officers watched in growing horror as they saw how humans conducted warfare. The first images showed ancient battles. Humans with spears and swords fighting in massive groups. Then came footage from more recent conflicts, soldiers hiding in trenches, artillery bombardments, tanks rolling across devastated landscapes. But it was the urban warfare footage that truly disturbed the aliens. Humans fighting house by house, street by street, never giving up even when faced with impossible odds. The siege of Stalingrad, where humans fought for months in the ruins of their own city. The Battle of Berlin, where civilians joined soldiers in desperate last stands. "What is the purpose of this transmission?" asked Commander Vexta. Kethvar had no answer. Zephyrian warfare was civilized, conducted between professional militaries with clear objectives. Surrender came when continued resistance became pointless. The idea of fighting to the death, especially involving civilians, was alien to their thinking. The footage continued. Vietnam, where a technologically superior force struggled against determined guerrilla fighters. Urban combat in dozens of human cities where every building became a fortress and every street a battlefield. Then came the space footage. Humans had been fighting in zero gravity for decades, developing tactics that no other species had ever considered. They used debris as weapons, turned asteroids into kinetic missiles, and converted cargo ships into improvised warships. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting movement in the asteroid belt." Kethavar switched his attention back to the tactical display. Something was happening among the rocky debris between Mars and Jupiter. Multiple contacts were moving, but the asteroids made it difficult to get clear readings. "Probably mining operations," Vexta suggested. "These humans strip mine their asteroid belt for resources." But then the contacts began moving with purpose, accelerating toward the Zephyrian fleet. These weren't mining ships. They were warships that had been hiding among the asteroids, powered down and invisible until now. The first ship to emerge from the belt was smaller than the Retribution, but built along similar lines. Angular black metal, heavy armor, oversized engines. Then came another and another. Within minutes, a dozen human warships were accelerating toward the battle. "How many ships do they have?" Kethavar demanded. His intelligence officer checked the records. "Our scouts reported fewer than 50 military vessels in the entire system. These additional ships, they weren't detected." Sarah smiled as her reinforcements arrived. Humanity had learned the value of surprise from centuries of warfare. Every ship in the belt had been hidden for years, waiting for this moment. Their crews had lived in cold sleep, their reactors shut down, their emissions signatures matching the asteroids around them. "All ships, this is Retribution," she broadcast. "Execute Plan Omega." The human fleet split into 3 groups and approached the scattered alien vessels from different angles. But they didn't attack immediately. Instead, they began broadcasting more footage. This time, the images showed human military doctrine in detail. How human armies used terrain to their advantage. How they concentrated overwhelming force against weak points while avoiding enemy strengths. How they used deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare to defeat superior opponents. The aliens watched footage of human special forces operations. Small teams infiltrating enemy positions, sabotaging key installations, and disappearing before retaliation could arrive. They saw how humans turned the enemy's own infrastructure against them. "This is psychological warfare," Vexta realized. "They're trying to demoralize us with images of their past conflicts." But Kethavar was beginning to understand something more disturbing. These weren't just historical records. They were a demonstration of human military philosophy. Every species the Zephyrians had conquered fought to defend their territory, their resources, their political systems. Humans fought to survive, and they had been doing it for millions of years. The first human ship reached optimal range and opened fire. But instead of the kinetic weapons the aliens expected, it launched something different. Missiles that moved slowly enough to track, but in such numbers that point defense systems couldn't stop them all. "Nuclear weapons," reported the Zephyrian sensor officer. "Multiple warheads per missile." The aliens had shields that could stop nuclear explosions, but not when the warheads detonated in such carefully coordinated patterns. The overlapping blasts created gaps in the quantum barriers, allowing secondary explosions to penetrate. 3 more Zephyrian ships died in nuclear fire. But what horrified Kethavar most was the precision of the attack. The humans weren't just throwing nuclear weapons randomly. They were using them as surgical instruments, carefully placed to maximize damage. Another human ship approached from a different angle and launched what appeared to be a simple kinetic projectile. But when it neared a Zephyrian cruiser, the projectile split apart into dozens of smaller fragments, each one targeted at a critical system. The cruiser's shield stopped most of the fragments, but several penetrated and destroyed key components. The ship didn't explode. It simply lost power and began drifting helplessly through space. They're targeting our systems, not trying to destroy us outright, Vexta observed. Why would they do that? Kethavar asked. His answer came when a human boarding shuttle launched from one of their ships and headed toward the disabled cruiser. The humans weren't just fighting to win, they were fighting to capture technology and gather intelligence. The broadcast continued, showing more examples of human warfare, how they adapted enemy weapons for their own use, how they studied captured equipment to develop countermeasures, how they turned every defeat into a learning experience that made them stronger. Admiral, his communications officer said urgently, we're receiving a transmission from the captured cruiser. The screen showed the interior of a Zephyrian ship, but it was now controlled by humans in powered armor. They moved through the corridors, with practiced efficiency, securing key areas and downloading computer files. Greetings, said the human team leader. We'll be borrowing your ship for a while. Don't worry, we'll return it when we're done studying your technology. The transmission cut out, leaving the Zephyrian command staff in stunned silence. The humans weren't just defeating them, they were learning from them, taking their advantages and making them their own. More human ships emerged from hiding places throughout the system. Some had been concealed behind moons, others had disguised themselves as space debris. Each one brought new weapons, new tactics, new demonstrations of human military innovation. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, we've lost 37 ships. At this rate, the entire fleet will be destroyed within the hour. Kethavar looked at the display showing human military history. Thousands of years of warfare, adaptation, and survival. These creatures had learned to fight everything from saber-toothed cats to nuclear-armed superpowers. They had turned war into a science, and they were very good at it. For the first time in Zephyrian history, Admiral Kethavar gave an order that had never been spoken by his species. Prepare to withdraw. Admiral Kethavar's order to withdraw echoed through the Zephyrian fleet, but it was already too late. The humans had anticipated this moment and prepared for it. Sir, called the sensor officer, massive contacts emerging from the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, they all have human installations. The tactical display lit up with new signals as dozens of additional human vessels powered up from hiding positions throughout the solar system. These weren't the improvised warships from the asteroid belt. These were purpose-built killing machines that had been under construction for decades. Captain, Chen watched the aliens' growing panic with satisfaction. Humanity had learned the most important lesson of warfare. Never fight fair when your species' survival is at stake. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, she broadcast to the human fleet. Her promotion had been automatic the moment alien ships entered human space. Execute containment protocol. Do not let any of them escape. The largest of the new arrivals was the UES Yamato, a ship designed around a single massive weapon. Its main gun was a railgun so large that the entire vessel was essentially built around it. When it fired, the tungsten projectile moved at 40% of light speed and carried the kinetic energy of a small asteroid. The Yamato's first shot crossed the solar system in minutes and struck a Zephyrian heavy cruiser, trying to reach the edge of the system. The alien ship simply vanished, converted to expanding plasma by the incredible impact. From the opposite direction came the UES Bismarck, built for close-range combat. Its armor was thick enough to ram through enemy vessels, and its hull bristled with point defense weapons designed to strip away shields and armor piece by piece. But it was the arrival of the carrier groups that truly broke Zephyrian morale. The UES Midway and her sister ships began launching fighters, hundreds of small, fast craft that swarmed around the larger alien vessels like angry wasps. What are those? Commander Vexta asked, staring at the tactical display. The human fighters were unlike anything in galactic warfare. Most species used single-pilot craft for reconnaissance or light patrol duties. These were different, cramped, brutal machines designed for one purpose: killing enemy ships as efficiently as possible. Each fighter carried a nuclear warhead and enough armor to survive close encounters with enemy vessels. Their pilots were trained to use ramming attacks if necessary, trading their lives to take out high-value targets. They're suicide craft, breathed the Zephyrian tactical officer. The pilots are willing to die to destroy us. Kethavar watched in horror as the human fighters dove into his formation. Zephyrian point defense systems tried to stop them, but there were too many targets moving too fast. The fighters wove between plasma beams and missile interceptors, closing the distance to their targets with reckless courage. The first fighter to reach its target was piloted by Lieutenant Maria Santos. Her craft had taken multiple hits during its approach, but the armored cockpit kept her alive long enough to complete her mission. She guided her fighter straight into the shield generator of a Zephyrian battleship and detonated her nuclear warhead. The explosion created a brief star in space. When the light faded, the alien battleship's shields were gone and its hull was cracked open like an egg. More fighters followed, each one piloted by humans who understood that their species' survival depended on stopping the alien invasion. They struck with precision and determination, targeting critical systems and creating openings for the larger ships to exploit. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the humans are jamming our communications. We can't coordinate with the rest of the fleet." This was another innovation that surprised the aliens. Electronic warfare was considered unsporting by galactic standards. Most species fought with honor, allowing their enemies to communicate and coordinate their defenses. Humans had no such scruples. They jammed alien communications, spoofed their sensors, and filled space with electronic noise that made coordination impossible. The Zephyrian fleet found itself fighting dozens of separate battles instead of one coordinated engagement. Admiral Chen coordinated the human response from the Retribution's bridge. Around her, officers called out status reports as the battle progressed. Yamato reports successful engagement. Target destroyed. Bismarck is engaging 3 enemy cruisers at close range. Fighter Squadrons 7 and 9 have neutralized the alien flagship's defenses. The systematic destruction of the Zephyrian fleet proceeded like clockwork. Every human ship knew its role. Every pilot understood the mission. They had trained for this battle for 50 years, and it showed. But the most devastating weapon in the human arsenal wasn't kinetic or nuclear. It was information. As the battle raged, human intelligence teams analyzed every piece of data they could gather from the alien ships. The Zephyrians fought using quantum communication networks that linked their vessels in real time. Once human cryptographers cracked the encryption, they could listen to every alien transmission. "Admiral," reported the intelligence officer, "we've broken their communication codes." "We can hear everything they're saying," Sarah smiled grimly. "Patch me into their command frequency." Across space, Admiral Kethavar was trying desperately to rally his remaining ships when a human voice cut through his communications. "Admiral Kethavar," came Captain Chen's voice, "I can hear everything you're telling your fleet. Your tactics are predictable. Your formations are obsolete, and your technology is inferior to ours in every way that matters." Kethavar felt his command structure collapsing around him. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating total superiority in every aspect of warfare. "You told your crews that humans are primitive," Chen continued. "Let me explain something about primitive species. We've spent 4 million years learning to kill things that were bigger, stronger, and better adapted than we were. We turned warfare into a science." On his tactical display, Kethavar watched another group of his ships fall to human attacks. A pack of destroyers had surrounded 3 Zephyrian cruisers and were systematically stripping away their defenses. The aliens fought bravely, but their weapons couldn't penetrate the destroyer's armor, while human weapons punched through Zephyrian shields like they weren't there. "Your species learned warfare from other civilized beings," Chen's voice continued. "You fight with honor, with rules, with predictable tactics. We learned warfare from nature itself, and nature doesn't fight fair." The truth of her words became clear as more human ships revealed themselves. Some had been disguised as asteroids for years. Others had hidden in the shadow of planets, their heat signatures masked by careful engineering. A few had actually attached themselves to alien scout ships and followed them back to the fleet. "How many ships do you have?" Kethavar asked over the open channel. "Enough," Chen replied simply. The battle was turning into a massacre. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, struck with devastating force, and disappeared before the aliens could respond. They used the solar system's own geography against the invaders, turning planets and moons into cover and obstacles. One group of human ships led a Zephyrian squadron into the rings of Saturn, where the ice and rock provided perfect camouflage for ambush attacks. Another group used Jupiter's massive gravity well to accelerate their kinetic weapons to even higher velocities. "Sir," Vexta said quietly, We've lost 60% of the fleet. Should we surrender? Kethavar considered this option, but he realized that the humans had never offered surrender terms. They weren't interested in capturing prisoners or negotiating treaties. They were focused on one goal: destroying every alien ship in their system. Admiral Chen, he called over the communication channel, I wish to discuss terms of surrender. There was a long pause before the human captain responded. Admiral, you came here to conquer my species. You plan to make us slaves, to strip our world of resources, to add us to your empire as a client race. Yes, Kethavar admitted, but surely we can reach some accommodation. The only accommodation, Chen interrupted, is your complete withdrawal from human space. Any ship that remains in this system in 30 minutes will be destroyed. Kethavar looked at his tactical display. Less than 70 ships remained from his original force of 200. The humans showed no signs of slowing their attack, and new ships continued to appear from hidden positions throughout the system. Very well, he said finally. All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal. But as the surviving Zephyrian vessels began to gather at the edge of the system, Admiral Chen had one final message for them. Admiral Kethavar, you're going to return to your hegemony and tell them what happened here. You're going to explain that humanity is not some primitive species to be conquered. We are the galaxy's newest apex predator, and we've been waiting for you to find us. The remaining alien ships jumped to hyperspace, carrying word of humanity's victory back to the Galactic Council. Behind them, the solar system buzzed with activity as human ships emerged from hiding and began salvaging alien technology. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Sol incident, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The same representatives sat around the curved table, but their confident expressions had been replaced by nervous uncertainty. At the center of the room, a holographic display showed the latest intelligence reports from human space. Admiral Kethavar stood before the council with only half his original fleet. The journey home had been long and humiliating. Every species they passed had heard about the defeat, and many were already questioning Zephyrian authority. Explain to us again how a single primitive species destroyed most of your fleet, said the Mantari delegate, his insect-like features showing clear skepticism. Kethavar's crystalline skin darkened with embarrassment. They were not primitive. Our intelligence was completely wrong. The humans had been preparing for our arrival for 50 years. The holographic display changed to show technical specifications for human weapons, kinetic kill vehicles that moved at significant fractions of light speed, nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers that could penetrate any known shielding, electronic warfare capabilities that turned the aliens' own communication networks against them. How is this possible? Asked the Korth representative. Our scouts observed their technology for decades. They were using chemical rockets and metal projectiles. They were hiding their true capabilities, Kethavar explained. While we watched their primitive civilian technology, they were secretly developing military systems that surpass our own in many areas. The Villani delegates' 6 eyes blinked in sequence. What do you mean, surpass our own? Kethavar activated another display. It showed footage from the battle, recorded by Zephyrian sensors before those ships were destroyed. The council watched in stunned silence as human vessels moved with impossible agility, fired weapons of devastating power, and coordinated attacks with precision that exceeded anything in galactic warfare. Their ship designs prioritize function over aesthetics, Kethavar continued. No elegant curves or artistic flourishes. Every surface is either armor or weapons. They built their vessels for one purpose: killing enemy ships as efficiently as possible. The footage showed the UES Retribution dancing through space, evading plasma beams that should have destroyed it. The massive battleship moved like a fighter craft, changing direction so rapidly that Zephyrian targeting systems couldn't maintain locks. How do they survive those acceleration forces? Asked the Corvin delegate. Advanced gravity manipulation and acceleration dampening systems, Kethavar replied. Technologies we assumed were impossible at their development level. The council members exchanged worried glances. If humans could develop such advanced technology while appearing primitive, what other species might be hiding similar capabilities? Show them the psychological warfare, Commander Vexta said quietly. Kethavar nodded reluctantly and activated another recording. The council watched as human ships broadcast footage of their military history. Ancient battles with swords and spears, modern conflicts with tanks and aircraft, urban warfare where civilians fought alongside soldiers. They don't fight like civilized beings, Vexta explained. There are no rules, no honor codes, no restrictions on tactics. They use whatever methods are necessary to achieve victory. The recording showed human fighters ramming alien ships, while their pilots smiled into the cameras. It showed entire human populations preparing for ground warfare, turning every city into a potential fortress. They fight total war, Kethvar said. Not military against military, but entire species against entire species. Every human is a potential combatant. Every resource is a weapon. Every tactic is acceptable if it ensures survival. The Mantari delegate clicked his mandibles nervously. Surely this is just propaganda. No species actually fights this way. They do, Kethvar insisted. We captured one of their ships and interrogated the crew. They told us about something called the Geneva Convention, rules they created to limit the brutality of warfare among themselves. But those rules only apply to conflicts between human factions. Against alien invaders, they consider any tactic acceptable. The holographic display showed technical schematics that human engineers had developed, planet-killing kinetic weapons that could be built from asteroid mining equipment, biological weapons tailored to alien physiology, self-replicating von Neumann machines that could consume entire solar systems to build more weapons. These are theoretical designs only, Kethvar assured the council. But the fact that they conceived such weapons shows how their minds work. They don't just plan to win battles. They plan to eliminate threats completely. A new voice interrupted the discussion. Perhaps we should hear from the humans themselves. Everyone turned to see a figure standing at the chamber's entrance. It was Admiral Sarah Chen, dressed in the black uniform of the United Earth Navy. She walked calmly to the center of the room, ignoring the various weapons that several delegates had drawn. How did you get here? Kethvar demanded. We've been monitoring your communications for months, Sarah replied. Your quantum encryption is impressive, but not unbreakable. We knew about this meeting before it was scheduled. The Zephyrian security detail moved to surround her, but Sarah raised her hand. I'm here to talk, not fight. But if you're curious, there are 12 human ships cloaked outside this station. Try anything hostile and they'll demonstrate our latest weapons development. The security team hesitated, looking to Kethvar for orders. The Admiral gestured for them to stand down. He had seen what human weapons could do. What do you want? Asked the Mantari delegate. To establish diplomatic relations, Sarah said simply. Humanity is ready to join the galactic community, but as equals, not subjects. She activated a portable holographic projector. The display showed Earth's current military preparations. Massive shipyards in orbit around every planet. Automated factories converting asteroids into weapons platforms. Training facilities where human soldiers learn to fight in every possible environment. In the 6 months since your invasion attempt, we've tripled our military production capacity, Sarah explained. We now have over 1,000 warships and the ability to build 10 more every day. The numbers were staggering. Most species took decades to build a single capital ship. Humans had industrialized warfare to a degree that the galaxy had never seen. What are your terms? Asked the Korth representative. Simple, Sarah replied. Humanity gets full membership in the Galactic Council with voting rights proportional to our population and industrial capacity. In exchange, we'll share our defensive technologies with species that face external threats. She paused and looked directly at Admiral Kethvar. We're also prepared to offer mutual defense treaties. Our analysis suggests that the galaxy faces threats you haven't told us about. Kethvar's expression changed. What do you mean? Your fleet movements over the past century suggest you're preparing for something big, Sarah said. Something from outside the galaxy that has you worried. We'd like to help. The council members looked at each other nervously. The humans had detected the signs of the approaching extragalactic invasion that the Zephyrians had been secretly preparing for. How could you possibly know about that? The Villani delegate asked. Because we think like predators, Sarah explained. We recognize when other predators are getting ready for a fight. Your species has been building up military forces for decades, while claiming they're for internal security. That's the behavior of prey preparing for a predator. She activated another display showing human intelligence analysis, star charts marked with predicted invasion routes, technical specifications for weapons designed to fight unknown threats, battle plans that assumed enemies with technology beyond current galactic standards. Whatever's coming, Sarah continued, You can't face it alone. Your military doctrine is too rigid. Your technology too specialized. You need allies who think differently, who can adapt quickly to new threats. Admiral Kethavar found himself nodding. The approaching threat from the void between galaxies had haunted Zephyrian strategic planning for generations. Their elegant, civilized approach to warfare might not be enough against truly alien enemies. "What makes you think humans would be effective against such threats?" he asked. Sarah smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Because humans are the threat that other species evolved to fear. We're persistence hunters, tool users, and problem solvers. We turned a death world into a garden and learned to kill everything that tried to stop us." She gestured to the holographic display showing human military capabilities. "Every other species in this galaxy evolved on relatively peaceful worlds and learned warfare from each other. Humans evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill us. We've been fighting for survival for 4 million years." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just another species to be conquered or contained. They were the galaxy's natural answer to existential threats. "Very well," said the Mantari delegate finally. "We accept your proposal for diplomatic relations." "Excellent," Sarah replied. "I look forward to working with you. But let me make one thing clear. We're not interested in conquest or empire building. We just want to survive and prosper. Help us do that peacefully and we'll be your greatest allies."